The village of Cindermarch sat in the dark palm of a dormant volcano, a stone bowl whose walls still glimmered with old magma like half-quenched stars. In the daytime, sulphurous mists drifted in curling ribbons. At night, the crater rim was a jagged crown against the sky. Travellers avoided the place, for it was said the mountain was not as dormant as it pretended, and that strange machinery ticked beneath the cobblestones. To those who listened, the stones echoed, not with the thin note of seconds, but with something deeper, like a drum urging soldiers onto a battlefield. In the heart of Cindermarch lived Tarion Fell, last of the Ember Clockmakers. His workshop was a prism of layered obsidian panes, each pane etched with delicate gears that glowed when sunset passed through them. Tarion's hands were dark with ash up to the wrists, and faint red scars latticed his palms, marks of the craft. Where ordinary horologists wound springs of steel, Tarion coaxed liquid fire into cogs no thicker than a fingernail. Where others soldered with tin or silver, he used the exhalation of dragons, captured in crystal phials and released in skeins of white-hot vapor. And where every other clock on the continent dutifully counted seconds, minutes, hours, his contraptions ticked in pulses of courage. It had been his mother's idea, he always said. Time is a coward's measurement, she would mutter, bending over blueprints speckled with ash flakes. People squander it, fear it, chase it. But courage? That's when a person decides what a moment is worth. She taught Tarion to carve balance wheels that swung in response to heartbeats, not pendulums. A soldier standing fast would give off a different resonance than a gambler folding a hand or a lover stepping forward to confess. The ember clocks would measure the swell and ebb of that bravery and display it on rims of ember glass, with slender arms shaped like phoenix feathers. The higher the quiver of gallantry, the grander the upward sweep of the minute, though the word minute hardly applied. When Tarion was 15, his mother ventured into the desolation beyond the crater to procure a final ingredient, the breath of the last vermilion, reputedly the oldest dragon still roaming the ash flats. She never came back. Some said the vermilion scorched her to bone. Others whispered she found peace inside the beast's ribcage, listening forever to the slow percussion of its hearts. Tarion inherited her texts, her debtor's ledger, and a half-completed clock whose mainspring was missing. Grief hardened him, but it did not close his ears. Each night the mountain rumbled behind the silence. Courage, not seconds. That was the pulse he must capture, if only to understand why his mother had risked everything for a final vial of flame. Years flowed, or rather, courage ebbed and surged, according to the ember clocks lining his shop. Kings rose and bled in distant provinces. Plague rattled city gates. Tarion cared little for such news until the day Lady Brigantine of the Helix Court arrived. Trailing 3 horses and a wagon full of provision, he stepped through the obsidian door without knocking. Dust of 1,000 miles clung to her leather cloak. Her left arm ended above the elbow, the sleeve pinned with a silver snake brooch. Her right hand clenched a tattered proclamation. "Clockmaker," she said, voice raw. "I require a chronometer of your most secret make, one that may judge the courage of 10,000 souls." Tarion lifted an eyebrow. "Souls? 10,000 is a high calibration. The League of Houses gathers at the equinox to test our claim to the Sky Throne. They will not settle for genealogies. They demand proof of bravery in the line of Brigantine. If I fall short, my family will forfeit all titles." She tossed a purse of coin, but Tarion did not reach for it. Gold was worthless in Cindermarch. The ground spat up nuggets like loose gravel. "What you ask would require a dragon's breath as a fusing agent," he said. "Not any drake will do. It must be ancient, heady with the memories of battles fought in primeval times." "I know," Brigantine replied quietly. "I brought the breath." From her satchel she withdrew a stoppered vial the size of a child's fist. Inside swirled crimson mist that seemed alive. folding and refolding like wings. Tarion felt the hairs lift on his forearms. The vermilion. He knew it at a glance, the scarlet density, the threads of gold crackling deep within, his mother's final quest bottled. He swallowed and found his throat tight. "Where did you get this?" "I took it from the beast that took my arm," Brigantine answered. "It sleeps beneath the obsidian plains west of here. I had the mercy not to kill it. Perhaps it had the mercy not to kill me. Either way, its breath is mine, and I will trade it for your skill." Tarion's fingers tremored. He imagined the hollow place beside his mother's tools, the missing vial she'd sought. If he crafted a clock with this breath, perhaps he would understand the final cadence of her heart. "I accept," he said. Construction began at once. The commission was forbidden article, no broader than a shield, yet capable of reading courage across a multitude. Tarion sketched an engine of nested orreries, 10,000 ember needles, each tuned to a single bloodline, orbiting a core wheel forged of raw dragon glass. When completed, the device would be mounted in Helix Court's Great Hall. Each needle would rise radiant if its subject met peril with valor, or sag dull if cowardice claimed them. The collective bloom of needles would testify to Brigantine's worth. First, though, the mechanism needed fusion, the irreversible alchemy that bound its components into living unity. Tyrion waited for nightfall, when the village slept. In the central courtyard behind his shop, black basalt tiles formed a sigil his mother had inlaid years before. The hour of the heart, an 8-pointed star intersected by a double spiral. Dragon breath must be uncorked only within such sealing geometry, lest it unravel the nerves of anyone nearby. He and Brigantine stood at opposite points of the star. Her expression was taut, but not with fear. Anticipation, perhaps. Tyrion raised the vial. The glass sweated frost, though its contents burned like molten rubies. He whispered a request, half prayer, half apology to the spirit of the vermilion, then broke the seal. Flame without fire erupted, silent as dawn. It poured over the half-built clock, caressing each gear with ribbons of incandescent mist. Tyrion guided it with a smith's tongs of meteoric iron, folding the breath around, copper tracing, knotting it through filigree like scarlet thread and embroidery. Sweat beaded his brow. Beside him, Brigantine held the frame steady with her one arm, refusing to yield even when the heat singed her skin. For the first time, Tarion heard the deeper hum his mother used to describe, the vibration of courage itself resonating against brass. Fear pulsed in his chest, but he did not falter. The breath obeyed, knitting the machine closed. When the last wisp vanished, the courtyard lay under cool starlight, and the device before them gleamed darkly, veins of living fire beating along its face. Brigantine reached forward. The needles flickered, still blank. "How does it start?" "It requires a heartbeat," Tarion answered. He pressed his thumb against a sensor pad etched with silver rune. A soft clack echoed. One ember needle glowed ember orange and ticked upward. Number, 1 unit of courage. A measure without denominator, yet unmistakable. The other 9,999 needles remained dormant, waiting for the people of Helix Court to stand trial. At dawn, Brigantine departed with her prize. Tarion watched her caravan snake up the crater's switchback trail. As dust swallowed the last wheel, an ache pooled in his chest. He thought it grief, then recognized it as unfinished inquiry. The clock he'd built might clear Brigantine's name, but what of his mother's name? Her ambition hung unanswered. Why had she sought the Vermilion's breath? Surely not only to finish a commission. She left no notes. A riddle echoed inside him. If courage can be counted, can it be spent? And what debt had she carried into the dragon's maw? That evening, while wiping soot from his benches, Tarion discovered a forgotten drawer in his mother's desk. Inside lay a scrap of leather inscribed with 2 symbols, the double spiral of the hour of the heart, and beneath it a sword with shattered blade. Inked below were 5 words: "Courage must someday be repaid." The next few days crawled, restless. Word from the Helix Court had not yet come. Tarion took apart lesser commissions just to feel gears slide under his fingers, yet every tick seemed muffled. The ember clocks on his wall chimed irregularly, as if they too waited on news. On the 7th night, thunder boomed against the crater rim, but the sky was clear. He stepped outside. The basalt path trembled. A roar rolled across the village, low, resonant, and angry. Firelight flickered on the horizon. The dragon Vermilion had awakened. Tarion's blood iced. He pictured Brigantine, the clock. The vial now empty. Had the dragon sensed its stolen breath? Dragons were bound to their flame. Without it, they decayed, mind and scale, until only rage remained. He knew the tales, though few witnessed such decline. The villagers emerged, wide-eyed, clutching lanterns. Tarion felt their fear like static in the air. Ordinary clocks would note an hour of panic. His mother's clocks quivered. Courage ebbed dangerously low. He hurried into the shop, retrieved the only object that mattered: a gauntlet forged of overlapping ember plates, each link a miniaturized clock spring. The gauntlet converted the wearer's bravery into kinetic force, a prototype he'd shelved. He donned it, feeling its weight. Courage is a currency, his mother had hinted. Expend it wisely. Outside, the night smoldered. A winged silhouette glided over the crater rim, scales glowing with cracks of magma revealed beneath. The last Vermilion descended, claws skidding across obsidian roofs. Roof tiles burst into shards. Flame licked windowsills. The dragon's chest rose and fell, but its breath was weak, patchy. It exhaled, and only sparks drizzled out, as though its lungs were flint and nothing more. Villagers scattered. Some fell to their knees. Tarion stepped forward. His heart pounded. The gauntlet's plates clicked, measuring each surge of fear and converting its opposite, the will to act, into heat. He knew what must be done. The dragon needed its breath rejoined. Yet he had none. The vial was empty. The fused breath lived now in the Brigantine clock, impossible to reclaim unless the dragon found the device itself. "Clockmaker," called the mayor, cowering behind a system. "Do something." Tarion squared his shoulders. "I intend to." He clambered atop a parapet so the dragon could see him. Their eyes locked. Its pupils molten crucibles, his reflecting them. He raised the gauntlet, thumb over the release lever. "I have forged what you lack," he shouted. "Come with me, and I will restore you." The dragon growled, but uncertainty tinged the sound. It crouched, head tilting. Tarion swallowed. Lies would doom them all, but truth might yet persuade. He pictured Brigantine's device, 20 leagues away. He could not retrieve it by dawn. He could, however, offer something else. Courage itself, raw and potent, channeled through ember metallurgy. He pressed the lever. A jet of incandescent light burst from the gauntlet, arcing skyward like an aurora. It was not flame, but condensed bravery. His own reserves, years stored in the plates. The beam attracted the dragon's gaze. It inhaled. The beam folded into its throat like silk returning to a spool. Scales brightened. A rumble shivered the stones. The dragon lifted its muzzle, confusion softening its posture, but the glow in the gauntlet dimmed, springs warping. Tarion felt fatigue punch through him, not physical tiredness soul-deep. He wobbled, still standing. Through blurred vision, he watched the dragon test its rejuvenated lungs. A thin crimson flame blossomed. Better, but not whole. Tarion had given a mote. The beast required the full measure. He needed more courage. Not his alone, an entire community's. The ember clocks in his shop could channel it, if required, yet doing so would drain the people, perhaps fatally. Then he remembered the leather note. Courage must someday be repaid. The phrase had felt ominous. Now it sounded like instruction. His mother had anticipated this dead. She'd gathered courage her entire life inside those ticking walls, storing it so that when the dragon came for its breath, payment could be rendered. Tarian rushed back inside, the dragon lumbering behind him like a storm cloud curious about a single lantern. He entered the vault, where 24 master clocks towered floor to ceiling. Each represented a year of his mother's work, and each stored units of bravery gleaned from volunteers. Miners who descended bottomless shafts, midwives who wrestled breech berths, children who dared night terrors, all recorded willingly, though they never knew where their courage went. He wrenched open the central pillar clock. A surge of ember light bathed the chamber. The courage reservoir spun, a sphere of liquid amber orbiting iron rings. He attached a siphon tube, then fastened the line to the gauntlet. Plates on his arm brightened anew. Overwhelmed, Tarian exited. The vermilion awaited, crouched amid toppled chimneys. He offered his arm again. Take it. All of it. The dragon hesitated. Its consciousness flickered behind lava-bright eyes, weighing trust. At last, jaw opening, it inhaled. A river of amber light streamed from the gauntlet. Tarian felt his knees buckle. Memories of his own bold moments flickered away, standing up to bullies as a child, asking his first love to dance, deciding to stay in Cindermarch after his mother vanished. Courage drained, but peace filled the vacancy. This, he realized, was the repayment. His mother had never intended to steal from the dragon. She had borrowed, mortgaged a community's bravery against future catastrophe. The dragon's scales blazed rose gold. With a satisfied grunt, it exhaled a test plume that melted a line across the cobbles before winking out on command. Control returned to its limbs. Purpose illumined its stance. It lowered its head to Tarian, touching the gauntlet gently in something like gratitude. A shout rose. Villagers peeked. No firestorm raged. The beast did not rend roofs. It simply stood guard over Tarian, whose legs had finally given way. He slumped, not afraid, but emptied. The dragon nudged him upright, then spread wings, half-healed membrane glowing. One powerful stroke raised volcanic dust. It jumped skyward, circling twice around the crater, then soared west, chasing stars. Silence followed, broken by cautious cheers. People rushed to help Tarian. He smiled weakly. "I'm alive," he assured them, listening to his heart's quiet metronome. Seconds had no weight, courage was spent, but seconds remained. Over the ensuing days, Cindermarch rebuilt. The ember clocks in Tarian's vault were dark, hands frozen. Without stored bravery, they were inert sculptures, yet villagers donated stories, retold valorous deeds, and found pride in doing so. Perhaps the clocks would charge anew, though slower. Bravery can be cultivated. No word came from Lady Brigantine until a courier arrived bearing a letter sealed with her family crest. Tari unfolded it with care. "Master fell," it read. "The device you forged functions beyond expectation. Before the League, our family was measured, and through that measurement, found worthy. Yet as the needles climbed, a strange thing occurred. A single scarlet plume escaped the core and vanished into the sky. The auditors panicked, but nothing else went amiss. I sensed your hand. Whatever debt you balance, know that House Brigantine owes you its loyalty. Should you need us, send word." Arian chuckled. That scarlet plume must have been the final stir of the dragon's breath. Returning home, he hoped the vermilion felt restored. Weeks stretched. Courage pooled slowly among the town clocks, ached from small acts. Apprentices presenting flawed work without excuse. Old friends reconciling after years of silence. Bravery is not always battle. Often it is the daily decision to stand in truth. On the 49th day, the dragon returned. It alighted on the ridge at dusk, folding wings with practiced grace. Villagers gasped but did not run. They had seen what repayment looked like. Fear had diminished. Tarian climbed to meet the beast. Its eyes reflected him like twin crucibles. From a satchel clutched in one talon, it produced an object, the brigantine chronometer, feathers of emmerglass intact, played the clock at Tarian's feet. The dragon bowed its head briefly, then flapped skyward and disappeared into ember clouds. Tarian knelt, examining the device. Something was different. The needles no longer pointed toward distant owners. Instead, they clustered toward the center, humming. He placed a fingertip on the outer rim. A pulse passed through him, resonant yet gentle. The machine had become a seed. It no longer counted others' courage. It gathered it, waiting for a gardener. In that instant, Tarian understood his inheritance fully. The ember clocks were never about tallying bravery for ledger's sake. They were banks for a currency demanded by forces older than kingdoms, by dragons, volcanoes, the heaving uncertainties of existence. Courage drawn from many could steady the wild heartbeat of the world in moments of chaos. His mother had begun the work. He must continue. He hauled the chronometer down to his shop, set it in the cleared vault where empty master clocks watched like sentinels. He connected conduits, aligning gears with reverence. The needles trembled, then blossomed outward, each pointing to a facet of Cindermarch. The forge, the market, the school, the infirmary, the graveyard. It was mapping courage not as isolated spikes, but as a living network. And in that luminous web, Tarian felt his own gauge fill again. Borrowed bravery returned, now not his alone, but shared abundantly. The deficit was gone. The account balanced. Night settled, soft as ash snow. Tarian opened the obsidian shutters, letting moonlight kiss the dials. He removed the gauntlet, now repaired with new springs, and hung it beside his mother's tools. Work to do tomorrow. Tutor apprentices, record tales, calibrate the freshly planted courage seed. But for a moment he allowed stillness. Seconds slid past, though he did not count them. Instead, he listened to the gentle chime of courage rising in tiny increments, like water licking a thirsty root. It sounded like his mother humming at her drafting table, like brigantine's steadfast grip on molten brass. Like a dragon's lung filling with homeward breath. Far below the crater's lip, the village lights winked. Somewhere above, invisible in night's cradle, the vermilion curled with renewed hearts. Between those two flames, one human, one legendary Tarian fell. Ember Clockmaker kept the time that mattered, fusing past and future with every quiet tick of valor reclaimed.